What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today we're going to be breaking down Matt Miller's brand new 2025 NFL mock draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. Below my face is my board. It is continually updating as I evaluate prospects, and speaking of that, we are having a top 41, technically 42, but 41 corner video coming out in the next day or two because, well, I was originally going to drop it earlier, but then I was like, well, I got to add more. I had like 25 guys. I'm like, well, got to add this guy, and well, we're here. So it's going to be dropping very soon, and it's been a pain in the ass working the graphics, but you guys know how much I love the corner position, so I couldn't hold myself back. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. It's probably going to be a 2-hour video, but if you want to get more involved in the community, go use that link tree. 2 clicks from going anywhere, including our #1 sponsor of the show, UnderDog Fantasy, that you can get up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you sign up. Play legally, play responsibly, but they also send me $60, so full transparency there. I use the app anyway, so it is what it is, but also you can use Olipop if you guys love that too. They're also a sponsor of the show, so you get some free ASMR on top of it. Starting out with the #1 overall pick, shout out to Matt Miller. He was a really cool dude. Got to see him in person in Mobile, like actually a really chill guy. But the #1 overall pick is a trade, so let's see how much the Giants paid to move up to 1. So they gave their second and third round picks in 2025 plus a 2026 second round pick to move up to number 3, or from number 3 up to number 1. That's a really steep price to pay. However, for the Giants not giving up a future first, where let's just say they struggle and they're in good range where they would be able to get either Arch Manning or be at the point where they love Shedeur, but the team's just not good enough, you can end up trading back and getting a ton of capital back. I like the fact that at least doesn't involve any future. I didn't even read this, and it looks like Matt Miller and I are on the same page. So, you know, the Giants move up for Shedeur Sanders. If they're going to gut the organization, I think that they'll go after the more safe quarterback that's going to be, I mean, he's better than Daniel Jones. Shedeur is my QB1. Of course, it's not because like Shedeur is inherently better than Cam, because Cam has his strengths and weaknesses. Shedeur does as well. It's just I tend to value the strengths of Shedeur literally minutely more. And I have an hour quarterback video breaking down each of the top guys where I end up being able to read you a full scouting report and I break down exactly how I grade each player. So if you want to see it, go there. New York gets their guy, and for not giving up a first round pick, I think that at least out of the trades that I've seen for the #1 pick, that's the most realistic. It will suck not to have a second and a third rounder, though. Then the Cleveland Browns end up going for, this is updated after Daniel Jones was released. Oh, look at that. Cool. So the Cleveland Browns didn't go Travis Hunter here at #2. I think that it's certainly reasonable to talk about Travis Hunter as one of the most dynamic weapons from college football. I'm personally not fully there. You guys know how much I love Travis Hunter. He is #8 on my board, and people say that's insane. I understand. I have him not as my corner 1. Technically, he's not my corner 2 either, but we haven't seen Ben Morrison since his injury, and I personally think Ben Morrison should return to school. That's beside the point. But to me, Travis is corner 3, and I don't think he's wide receiver 1. Like, I think that he brings a lot of really unique traits, and I really love him as a corner, and I like him as a wide receiver. But at #2 for the Browns, with their quarterback scenario, I think that this wide receiver class is good enough to where you don't really need to do this. And, I personally think that's perfectly understandable. I personally just would not go for Travis Hunter at 2 if I am Cleveland. At #3, the Jaguars go Kelvin Banks. They traded back, got all those picks, and still got Kelvin Banks. Left tackle is going to be an issue. I'm not fully sold on Kelvin Banks just yet, but I still like him a lot. So I think he's definitely a first-round player. It's good to see him getting some more love. He started slipping much further than expected in a lot of mock drafts, but this is going to be a little bit higher than where I'm comfortable with him, but I do understand in this draft where there's a lack of true tackles, I think Kelvin Banks, even though people have some questions about him, actually is one of the few that I do think could really hold up at tackle. At 4, we got the Vegas Raiders going Cam Ward. They're just going to sit and pick and select a very, very good quarterback. I think this is a perfectly reasonable selection. At #5, we got the Titans going Luther Burden. I think this is great for being in a Brian Callahan system. Luther Burden is going to be essentially what Tyler Boyd was, but with a lot more meat on his bones and actually a lot better after the catch. I think this will be, I would want for I would love for Brian Callahan to be able to get a receiver of the caliber of Luther Burden. And it's an interesting combination. It's almost as if you married Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd together. Not maybe like equal to the talent level that those two would combine into, but I think play style wise, you could arguably get a very similar style of player for Luther Burden. So it'd be intriguing to see how he'd be deployed. And number 6, we got Will Johnson here for the Patriots. I've taken this pick again myself. Of course, there is receiving options on the board. I do think T. Higgins is probably going to end up going to New England in free agency. So that's the good counter for not going after T-Mac is, well, we're already solving that with our money in free agency. I do think Abdul Carter should be on the table, but Will Johnson's my number 1 player in the class, and I'm glad that he's getting still the respect that he deserves. And number 7, we got the Jets going Abdul Carter. They're just basically going BPA, and with a new organization coming in, I'm not going to totally tell them no on this. You're getting the best player. And I do think that technically, if you believe in Josh Simmons, I think that he could be a dark horse pick if he ends up medicals clearing because he was the best tackle in the class. And you still need one more. You had 2 tackles on 1-year contracts. Olu Fashanu is going to be one of those 2. So the other, you could end up realistically looking at someone like Josh Simmons if his medicals clear out and he looks just as potent as he did before he got hurt versus Oregon. But again, that's a very big stretch. We obviously have a lot of players here, like Mason Graham, that a lot of people would like to toss in the ring as well over an edge rusher here in Abdul, but I personally am not going to fully disagree. The Panthers can go T-Mac at number 8. That's a lot of height in that receiving core. And, I certainly think that Xavier Legette, Jalen Coker, I love it. Tetairoa McMillan, I understand it because I think when you look at, I'm trying to remember where the Saints are in this. The Saints would be the next team probably to take him, or like any of the next teams, but the Saints are a legitimate team if you don't take T-Mac to be the guy to take him. And if you end up having that as a consequence, you not only are weakening your receiving core, you're giving a perfect fit to Clint Kubiak's system with a player that, pretty much covers all the weaknesses of the rest of the receiving core. So this could almost be like a defensive move where you're still upgrading your receiving core, but you're also guaranteeing that the receiving core of your own division rival won't be massively upgraded. So as much as I want to say go after James Pierce here, I understand why it could end up being certainly. That's interesting. 3 receivers have never gone in the top 8 in the common draft era. That's actually nutty. But regardless, I still think that the value certainly makes sense as a defensive or an offensive move. Then we got the Cowboys going Mason Graham. That's the dream pick. If he ends up slipping there, that's perfect to replace Osa Odigizua. It allows even some run defense upgrade, and, you can never go wrong with bolstering the defensive line or the offensive line for that matter. But defensive line rotations are far more common, so I understand why. It's a lot easier to pull the trigger on a defensive lineman than an offensive one at the top, which I don't really think the Cowboys should do. But it's pretty much, Ashton Jeanty makes a ton of sense here. I love Ashton Jeanty. You guys know I like taking him in the top 5 even. But if you're not going to go that route, Mason Graham is a perfectly logical one. Then the Bengals go Mikael Williams. I know the guys at ESPN love Mikael Williams. And I think the Bengals could be in the market for edge rusher. I'm not going to blame them. But I'd prefer to look over at Nick Scorton. I think that fits the profile even better than Mikael Williams with a much better production platform. I personally think Williams should return to school. I think he should end up really just honing his craft and polishing for one more year and ending up being a top 5 pick. Like, just simply put, this class has a ton of edge rushers, and it really is rolling the dice as to whether the teams will like Mikael Williams over Nick Scorton, over Princely Uman-Mielen, over JT Tuimoloau. Like, those are like the back end guys, but you could end up talking about a plethora of other edge rushers as well, like Jalen Walker on his own team, to where I think it's safe to say that Mikael could see a much better future as when he limits the amount of competition he's going to be going up against. Then at number 11, you got the Saints going Jalen Walker. Speaking of, I'm not against this at all. You're going after the best player available, someone who has a ton of flash and like unbelievable versatility. So, to me, I love Jalen Walker. He's been pretty damn high on my board for a significant period of time, and I'm pretty happy to keep him there. At number 12, we got the Bears going Derek Harmon. I've gone after defense and cheer for the Bears multiple times. I do it in round number 2, but if you can end up sniping some good offensive line in round number 2, this could, pretty much overshadow what this type of pick is. I'm not fully sold on Derek Harmon yet as a top 15 pick based on the fact that you saw Byron Murphy, who I think was one of the best defense interiors that I've studied in recent memory, slip past 15. I don't know if Derek Harmon's going to garner that type of love from me, but we'll see. I don't have an official grade on Derek Harmon. That's on me, but I wanted to really dive deep into the corner class before starting to polish up the other positions. Then we got Miami Dolphins going Shedeur Sanders, defensive edge out of Texas A&M. Interesting to see him kick to the inside. This is something that I had an issue with this past draft with D-Rob, and for the Cardinals, I just really was like, why? He wasn't graded out as a first rounder as a defensive interior the year before, and all of a sudden he gets taken at pick 27, and they're kind of kicking him to the interior. I assume this is very similar with Shedeur Sanders here. And Shedeur is a good player. He's a really, really good edge rusher. But using him as a defensive interior, I feel limits the value he brings as a size mismatch. I understand, and I love the idea of going after a defensive interior for the Dolphins, but this frame of defensive interior, when you do have guys like Walter Nolan and obviously Kenneth Grant and Deone Walker for that matter, I just feel like there's better applications of Shedeur Sanders. And I know that you technically could talk about versatility, but it's a very similar conversation to what I was talking about with Travis Hunter. Like, Shedeur is not a top 3 interior defensive lineman, and he's not a top 3 edge rusher either. That doesn't make him more valuable than either of those, in my opinion. But for a team like the Dolphins that might want to essentially get a 2-for-1, you can really start convincing me if that's what the organization is looking for. Outside of that, I don't value versatility to that same degree because this is a lot of edge rushers in this class, and I would prefer to look at the defensive interiors if you're trying to get someone who has that versatility. At number 14, you get the Buccaneers going James Pierce. Excellent move. I obviously go Jalen Walker for him all the times, but he was taken earlier, so this is technically even better than Jalen Walker. I'm a big fan of that. He's my number 2 player in the class. The Colts didn't go Malachi Starks. It's an easy pick. I mean, he's a quality, versatile defensive back. That's where versatility matters to me, is in the defensive back room, because there are so many injuries, so many shifts of formations, and I think that's where versatility really can end up being a massive win. If they end up missing on Malachi Starks, I do think there's a lot of quality defensive backs in this class, but I do think Malachi Starks, just with the pedigree that he brings and the consistency that he brings, is almost a no-brainer at 15. At number 16, the Niners go Cam Williams. I think he certainly could end up returning to school, but this would be an excellent move. He's someone who still needs polish, but I still think he is certainly an upgrade over McKivitz, and you do have that growth curve with a really good mentor there in Trent Williams. So you can ending up turning this from a loss to a win, essentially, for Cam Williams with the struggles that he's had. So you might be able to take advantage of one man's trash is now San Francisco's treasure. Then we have the Seahawks going Will Campbell. He's going to end up playing guard, because he's such a talented lineman, but I really have seen some issues with him as a pure offensive tackle. And, I think he'll be a full-time guard. And when, unfortunately, because I love Abe Lucas, when he gets hurt, you end up kicking Will Campbell to tackle as a serviceable placeholder. I think that would be perfectly fine. And it's really good value. That versatility does actually add something in that situation because, again, you have a projectable issue at right tackle for injury, but not an issue when the guy's healthy. So that's perfect. Rams go Carson Beck at 18. Okay. Well, I know that the Rams should be going after a quarterback. And I think Carson Beck gets more shit than he should. I'm not necessarily I know that right now he's talking about Beck could get himself back into the first with a strong finish. I already had my concerns with Beck, and you guys know, my first quarterback, and this is even adjusted for positional value, is at 35. I technically don't have one as a top 32 player. So with that in mind, I don't have Carson Beck even in my top 100. And I do think the Rams should be looking at a quarterback. But if you're trying to look for a quarterback that has similar skill set to Matt Stafford, where they have the size, they have the arm talent, they have a baseline level of mobility to where they can end up actually making a play with their legs if need be, and their processor actually, for the most part, is really damn solid, that's Drew Allar. So I respect the quarterback move. I'm not sold on Carson Beck, and I don't think many people are. I do think that, again, the it's disproportionate, the hate on him comparative to what he actually has put out there, but he needs to potentially go back. I certainly think he needs to right the wrongs, because this has just not been the year for him to really gain the favor of a lot of, at least the confidence of a lot of people, including myself. And I assume organizations will follow. If the baseline fans don't have any confidence in a player, I don't know how multi-billion-dollar organizations should either. At 19, the Broncos go Arianti Ursary. That's a beautiful move. I mean, left tackle is going to be wide open because, well, people said I had beef with Garrett Bowles. I was like, why? I ended up talking about him as a reason for a lot of teams passing on tackles so that they can end up signing him, but I think they just misheard me right there. Ursary's fantastic. First off, he's used to the cold weather. He's going to be perfect in Denver, but he also has just that mean mentality that you're looking for, and it's improved exponentially as a pass blocker. This is a really good move for Denver. It really is. So I think that's a perfect play, even though you guys know I love Tyler Warren there to him. At 20, you got the Falcons going Nick Scorton. No complaints here, friend. No complaints here. This is a great pick. I've gone LT Overton, Mikael Williams, whoever is available who has that larger size. I personally think that's a great move. You can't really go wrong. Then you got the Cardinals going Isaiah Bond. Okay, well, it looks like we're going to have to deal with this stupid privacy thing here. But Isaiah Bond goes to the Cardinals. I think there's bigger issues for the Cardinals. With the defense interiors on the board, I would definitely opt for that. There's a lot of good speed receivers. If you want to go to Texas, by the way, you could get Matt Golden down the board, and I think that would be a really good get. And you guys know me. I love Isaiah Bond. He's my number 13 player. So if you're looking at this solely as a value perspective, great. And I think he complements what they have in Harrison as well as Wilson as well. So you're in a good realm. Also, Ashton Jeanty slipping, we're ignoring that because you guys know where I think he could end up. So regardless of that, it's just, Isaiah Bond I think is fantastic. I just personally don't think it helps out the Cardinals as much as maybe I think Matt believes it to. And again, that's what's so beautiful about football. We get to have, we look at the same teams, we look at the same tape, we look at the same players watching their exact moves, and we come away with different valuations for both what a team can improve on as well as what the draft has in terms of value. And so I personally would be opting for fixing that defense before trying to get even more firepower. But if they do end up getting Isaiah Bond, I do think that there is a path to success by being able to address it with guys who either fall or just being really smart with your picks down the board, because Isaiah Bond is a game changer. I do think this is a little bit of a dig at Michael Wilson, though, because I do love him. And I mean, I don't really think he needs to, I think he can end up being that true too, but that's just because I'm a homer. Then at number 22, the Commanders go Ben Morrison. Already said I thought he should end up returning to school, but I do think that Marshawn Lattimore's injury history certainly does have some question marks. Ben St. Juste, I think he's going to be returning. I don't think he's going to be leaving after a good year, but I do think Ben Morrison, if these guys all leave, could end up being a quality boundary corner for him. Then we have at 23, the Texans go Ashton Jeanty. I think that if you end up getting him at 23, there's just no complaints from me. He's a top 5 player in the class, or well, I guess top 6, but that includes 2 guys with season-ending injuries. That those grades are not adjusted for the season-ending injury because I haven't seen him post. I think it's fair to just say, hey, these guys are hurt. This is their pre-injury grade. So he is pretty much a top 5 player that you're getting at 23, even factoring in positional value. He's just not a great receiver, but he's an absolute baller. I do see that is interesting. I would love to be able to see the similarities to Alvin Kamara, because I think Alvin Kamara is like a difference maker as a receiver. I know that he ended up having like a pretty solid year the year before, but that is certainly an interesting comparison. That certainly is. But continuing on, we got the Baltimore Ravens going Siobhan Ravel. I think that's perfectly reasonable. He just declared for the draft today too. He ended up signing up for or accepting his Senior Bowl invite, but he also, I'm trying to remember. I don't know if he actually did. But regardless, he ended up declaring for the draft. And, I'm going to see if this is really going to work out. But I do see this as a move Baltimore could certainly do. And I wasn't super duper high on Ravel, but of course I only had one game to truly fully base his skill set off of, which is what a lot of people used, which is that Michigan game from the year before. But, people who have more tape love him more than I do. And that doesn't make me correct. or them correct. It's just like, I'm going to have it in my video, spoiler alert. When I said 41, actually 42, it's because I don't have any tape from him this year. So I don't have a genuinely informed opinion on Siobhan Rivell. And no, I'm not going to go to YouTube to watch regular game tape because that's disingenuous. I hold myself to a higher standard than that. And, I think that that's fair. I think there's enough other players to where if this is going to be our blind spot, so be it. But Siobhan Rivell to the Ravens, I've gone corner for him multiple times. I think it's a smart move. You got the Chargers going Colson Loveland. It's the cute pick. It's the storyline pick. Not going to disagree with that whatsoever. I really wish they actually went Brock Bowers, but they did a really damn good job getting Joe Alt. So not going to complain either way. They got a top tackle rather than the best tight end in the NFL. They might end up getting themselves one of the best tight ends here at 25. Then you got the Green Bay Packers going Jahdae Barron. I think Hafley likes, physicality, but also man coverage ability. What I really love about Jahdae Barron is his zone coverage ability. His IQ in zone is really awesome. So I'd prefer to go after a more physically well-built and more man-press-focused corner. And for me, that's Azariah Thomas. But you could even talk about guys down the board like Trey Amos, Jermari Harris, that I think bring a new level of physicality, but also athleticism, arm length, because that's Jahdae's big issues. 5'11", but he also has short arms. I like Jahdae Barron. Don't get me wrong. He's like, where's he on my board? Number 37. Like don't get it twisted. But Jahdae Barron is a very, very good player. I just think that for Jeff Hafley, based on what he has shown to value in the past, I think there's better system fits, and it's something that I want both for Jahdae as well as the Packers, as well as for all of us who are watching as well, to see Jahdae be able to thrive in a system that allows him to thrive the most. Philadelphia Eagles and go Barrett Carter at 27. So I think that's interesting. I would not go linebacker in the first. Howie is not one to go linebacker in the first. And I also think that with the quantity of linebackers in this class, it would make a lot of sense for them to target one, but I feel like there's a lot better value. I'll just put it that way. I think there's a lot better value. You can look at edge rusher. There's a lot of really good edges on the board still. I'm a big JT Tuimoloau guy, but if you want to say fuck my opinion, that's perfectly fine. There's plenty of other dudes like Kamen Rucker, as well as the Prince Umambielen that I think could fill in for that Josh Sweat role. You look at tight end. You look at Tyler Warren, and I think that would be a perfect fit for the Eagles as well. Both those guys add way more value, in my opinion, than Barrett Carter does. So I personally love Barrett Carter. Don't get me wrong. Just in the first, I think there are just far higher value picks. At 28, we got the Steelers going Jalen Milroe. I've got them going Drew Aller. You guys know how I feel about that. And I know how you guys feel about that as well. But the Steelers going after a quarterback, it is very reasonable to be able to get a developmental quarterback with that fifth-year option. Would I hate the Steelers for going Jalen Milroe? No. But I also really need to see a path for progression for Jalen Milroe, because I don't really trust Justin Fields to train Jalen Milroe because Justin Fields is still learning. If Russell Wilson returns, I don't see Russell Wilson as the guy who has the skill set that maximizes Jalen Milroe's potential. So I don't know. I'm trying to remember who ended up being the quarterback coach for Lamar Jackson, but if you could somehow find a way to bring him in as an advisor or something, you might be able to let Jalen Milroe be the most of himself, because that's how you need to use him early in his career as he starts to improve as a passer. At 29, you got the Vikings going Walter Nolan. Defensive interior is a big need for him. Right guard is as well. Walter Nolan's fantastic value. At 30, the Bills go Tyleik Williams, a super high floor defensive interior. Not going to shame this pick at all. He's a quality player. And at 31, we got the Lions going Jonas Savania. He also has center versatility, so you actually kind of fill a short-term role in left guard, but also a center in the long run. So I do like that a lot. And at 32, we got the Chiefs going Josh Simmons. So Josh Simmons, I know that the Chiefs fans are like, don't swing continuously at the tackle position with, rookies. Get more proving guys, let your other guys develop. And, that's fair. I mean, that's fair. And, the thing is, I'll say this is the one caveat. Josh Simmons is my number 4 player in the class. And I think that even if he doesn't work out as a tackle, this dude's going to be a kick-ass guard to replace Trey Smith. So a lot of this will obviously change post-free agency. There's a lot of guys that either will be re-signed and it will give us a lot more clarity as to their needs, or we'll see guys getting signed by certain teams, and that too will show us a good direction for which these teams will value certain players and the style of impact, and just whether they value the long-term or the short-term response for their picks. So that's going to be the video. Thank you so much for watching. Love you. See you on the far side.